All right, guys, so I compiled I compiled a few tips and tricks that would help you along your investing journey based off of the things that I know. So let's go ahead and get right into it, right? A simple, repeatable process for smarter investing, right? A longer version for this is the Health is Wealth series, intelligent investing checklist. You know, there's so many things you can put this under. But here, step one, understand the basics, right? The share price, right? So check the current share price, ask if this is affordable for consistent accumulation. The goal is always 100 shares. Minimum. The goal should always be 100 shares because why else would you want to own some of that stock if you don't at least have 100 shares to play with, right? You also get a nice little chunk of profit whenever you start growing your portfolio with 100 shares of any given stock, right? So another thing to look out for is the market cap, right? Some people call it market cap, right? A small is in the $2 billion range. First of all, I'm not even looking at companies that are under $1 billion just to protect myself, because I don't believe any company can just piss off or just fumble or just $1 billion, right? It's a lot harder to do that, right? So anything in the $1 billion range, you're good. So around the $2 billion range is going to be small. Mid's going to be from 2 billion to 10 billion. Large is going to be 10 billion plus, right? This helps you understand the growth potential versus the risk, right? Because it's also not that easy to get $1 billion. However, if you have $1 billion, it's easier to get $1 billion because you already have it. That's another reason why I only deal with $1 billion market caps. Any of that type of propaganda, and know what you need to do, because the most important thing in investing is time, because time is one thing you never get back, right? Meaning if there's a deal and you lose out on that deal, you'll never get that time back. You never get back to go back to the time to really get back in that deal. So just fun fact, time is very important. Time, baby, right? So step 4, right, on this checklist, build your accumulation plan. Not everybody has the same accumulation plan because not everybody's the same person. We all have our individual risk levels. We all have our individual ideologies. We all have our individual perception of life itself. So with that being said, build your accumulation plan and know it. In this sense, I talked about it a little bit later. I talked about it a little bit earlier. However, I'm gonna go over it again. 100 shares roadmap. 100 shares roadmap minimum. You always want to be able to get 100 shares. If you just think about that. If you don't believe you could even acquire 100 shares within a year of starting investing into the stock, you want to be a little bit more mindful of what you're investing in. Now, there are like the safe and go-to stocks like Apple, Nvidia, Google, Microsoft, things like that, right? But those are the ones with the expensive share prices. This is why we're going to do a little bit more research and go into a little bit more affordable stocks and companies that we can afford, and hopefully have 100 shares in 3 to 6 months or even less, right? So, and I say that because you'll see whenever you start profiting off of owning 100 shares of companies and things like that, right? So step 5 on this checklist is going to be track performance trends. Always track performance trends. You don't even really got to track it. This information is typically always being tracked for you. You just got to keep up with these trends, right? So price movement, right? Is it so step 2, right? You have to gauge liquidity and the activity, right? That has to do with the volume. Look at the daily trading volume. The higher volume equals an easier enter and exit position, right? You'll be able to see it, right? There also might be a little bit more volatility with volume whenever you have a higher volume. So that's another thing to keep out for, right? But that's like getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out type beat right there. But with my investing, you're always in for the long term, but you're also dabbling in a little bit of the short term, getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out. You get it, right? So step 3, know the business and know the sector, right? The sector has to do with the industry. I just like to use the word sector. Everyone uses their own little language, tidbits, get into it, right? So I prefer the tech industry, energy industry, AI industry, and last but not least, healthcare, right? Word to my boy, the head of ND Investors. What's name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Buffett, Mr. Warren Buffett, who just took a trade on UNH, United Health, right? Go ahead. United Health is also another good stock. It's just a little bit too expensive when you come talk about the 100 shares thing, right? But yeah, know industry, tech, energy, AI, healthcare. Those are really good ones to keep up with. Compared to macro trend, is the sector growing or is it struggling type deals? So these are really good things to just keep an eye out for, right? As far as the rumor and the news is, any headlines, government policy, partnership, lawsuits, contracts typically always make the price move. In what direction? That depends on how the news is being perceived by mass media. However, you need to be able to break through any of that type of propaganda month, year, etc., right? Ideally, if it's down for the day, week, or month, it's going to typically be a good buy based off of where we're typically looking in the AI, tech, health type industries, right? This helps spot if you're buying into weakness, or if you're buying into strength, right? Which is the weakness is going to be potential discounts, and then strength is going to be the momentum whenever it's climbing up, right? So you want to be mindful of when you're buying into things, right? It's like if something has already had like momentum, right? It's basically already had like 2 leads, right? Because sometimes you won't get a good 5 to 10% positive for the day. You probably don't want to start getting into those stocks because it's high price right now, right? Wait until the hype settles. If it starts staying, you know, around those high levels, then you might want to start dollar cost averaging into said stock, right? But another thing to keep out for is the fear and greed index, right? Especially if we're talking about things like crypto or the overall market, right? Because bro, if niggas think there's gonna be a crash and so everybody starts selling, boom, that's probably the time that you need to start buying, because you're gonna find a lot of things that are on discount because everyone was emotional invest. You don't want to get emotional with this shit, because when the moment you get emotional with this shit, you're gonna be doing that selling whenever people are selling, and not the buying when people are selling, because that's whenever you get low price, right? So fear and greed index is very important. Fear equals potential buying opportunity. Greed equals be cautious. Price may be overheated, oversaturated. No bueno, right? So at step 6, we have external validation, analyst ratings, checking the consensus, buy, hold, or selling. Look at the price target. Don't follow blindly. Now, granted, in this space, there's always going to be a little bit of following. That's how you get your information. However, the blind will lead the blind. Don't be blind, nigga. Open your goddamn eyes, my boy, my girl, whoever you are. Open your eyes and be mindful of decisions that other people are making, decisions that you would consider making before you actually execute on them, because you can't go back on things. That's why time is very important, right? For example, I had 100 shares of Rigetti. I thought the market was about to crash because of the whole war shit with Israel and stuff, and I sold half my shares, so I only have 50 shares or so, and now we're getting up like motherfucking, and I'm down, and it's because I can't go back and get those shares that I already sold. It is what it is, right? I profited, but it is what it is. I could have profited more. At step number 7, we're getting down to the last of these steps, right? Is decisions and review. Ponder your decisions, execute said decisions, review it, rinse and repeat. Okay, so your decision rule: buy only if 3 to 5 checklist items line up with with your qualifications, right? So this guideline I'm basically giving you is the qualifications needed that would have to be met for me to